I walked into the Monday morning meeting expecting to present my team's quarterly progress report. The conference room buzzed with nervous energy as department heads filed in. Brad, my manager for the past 2 years, stood at the front adjusting his tie with that smug expression I'd grown to hate. The CEO, Mr. Thompson, sat at the head of the table, his sharp eyes scanning documents. "Maya," Brad called out loudly, "before we start, I need to address some serious concerns about your team's performance." My stomach dropped. This wasn't on the agenda. Every head in the room turned toward me. I felt heat rise to my cheeks as whispers started around the table. "Your project delays have cost us 3 major client opportunities," he continued, his voice carrying across the silent room. "Frankly, your barely competent management style is dragging down the entire department." The words hit me like physical blows. I tried to speak, but my throat had closed up completely. Mr. Thompson's expression remained neutral, but I caught him writing something down. The other department heads avoided my eyes. My hands trembled as I gripped my presentation folder, knowing I wouldn't be giving it today. The silence that followed felt endless. I waited for someone, anyone, to speak up. My team members sat frozen in their chairs. Alex, who I'd mentored for 6 months, stared at his laptop screen. Jessica, who'd thanked me just last week for helping her through a difficult project, suddenly found her phone fascinating. Even Mr. Thompson said nothing. He just nodded slightly and moved on to the next agenda item as if nothing had happened. I sat there feeling like I was drowning in plain sight while everyone watched. Brad returned to his seat with a satisfied smirk, occasionally glancing my way as if daring me to respond. But what could I say? Any defense would sound weak and desperate. I'd learned that lesson the hard way over the past 2 years. The meeting continued around me, voices becoming background noise. I focused on breathing steadily, fighting back tears that threatened to spill. My career, my reputation, everything I'd worked for felt like it was crashing down in real time. When the meeting finally ended, people filed out quickly, avoiding eye contact. I remained seated until the room emptied, my hands still shaking. I barely made it to my car before the tears came. Sitting in the parking garage, I sobbed harder than I had in years. It wasn't just today's humiliation. It was 2 years of systematic torture that had finally broken something deep inside me. Brad had stolen credit for my ideas countless times. He'd undermined my authority with my team, contradicted my decisions in meetings, and sabotaged my projects with impossible deadlines. Every success I managed despite his interference, he claimed as his own leadership. Today was different though. Today he'd destroyed my reputation in front of the entire senior staff. I'd always been professional, always tried to rise above his petty games. But this felt like career suicide. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "How was your big presentation today, honey?" I stared at the message, unable to answer. How could I explain that I never got to present? That instead, I'd been publicly labeled as incompetent? I wiped my eyes and started the car. Maybe it was time to update my resume. Maybe Brad had finally won. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I opened my laptop and started going through old emails. At first, I was just torturing myself, reliving every slight and stolen victory. But then something shifted. I began saving specific messages to a new folder. There was the email where Brad took credit for the Morrison account strategy I'd developed. Another where he blamed me for delays that were actually caused by his last-minute changes. Screenshots of team chat messages where he'd contradicted my instructions to confuse my staff. I wasn't acting out of rage anymore. This felt different. Strategic. Each piece of evidence I gathered revealed a pattern of manipulation that went far beyond normal workplace politics. Brad wasn't just a difficult boss. He was systematically destroying careers. By 3 a.m., I had 17 documents saved. Emails, project timelines, performance reviews where his feedback contradicted client praise. The digital trail was more extensive than I'd realized. My hands had stopped shaking. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control. I created a secure cloud folder and uploaded everything, then password-protected the files. The next morning, I called Elise, a retired VP who'd worked here for 15 years before taking early retirement last year. She'd always been my biggest supporter, and I trusted her completely. "Maya, darling, I heard about yesterday's meeting," she said before I could even explain. "The corporate grapevine works fast. Are you okay?" I told her about Brad's public attack and my growing collection of evidence. Elise listened quietly, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Here's what you need to understand," she said finally. "Thompson didn't get where he is by being fooled easily. He notices patterns. Brad's behavior isn't invisible to him. Then why doesn't he do something about it? Because he needs proof, not just suspicions. And Maya?" Her voice became serious. "Don't quit. Let Brad fire himself. Men like him always do, given enough rope." She was right. Quitting would look like admission of guilt. But staying meant enduring more humiliation. "I'll help you," Elise continued. "But you need to be smart about this. Document everything, but don't let anyone know what you're doing." 2 days later, Brad set me up again. We had a crucial client presentation with Peterson Industries, a potential $1 million account. Brad was supposed to brief me on their specific requirements Tuesday morning. Tuesday came and went with no briefing. When I asked, he said he'd email the details. The email never arrived. Wednesday morning, 30 minutes before the meeting, I cornered him in his office. "Brad, I still haven't received the Peterson brief." He looked up with fake surprise. "Oh, didn't I mention? They're particularly sensitive about budget constraints and timeline flexibility. Also, they hate flashy presentations. Keep it simple." Something in his tone made me suspicious, but I had no choice. I quickly revised my presentation, removing graphics and focusing on conservative timelines. The meeting was a disaster. Peterson Industries loved flashy presentations and aggressive timelines. They wanted innovation, not conservative approaches. As I stumbled through my revised presentation, I could see their interest dying. "I'm sorry," the client said afterward. "This doesn't match what we discussed with Brad yesterday." Brad had met with them yesterday. Without me. And told me the exact opposite of what they wanted. After the Peterson disaster, something unexpected happened. Aisha, a junior developer who rarely spoke up, approached me privately in the break room. "Maya, can we talk somewhere private?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. We went to my office and she closed the door. "What Brad did to you in that presentation, he's done it before. To other women." My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" "Samantha, who left last year. He did the same thing to her. Set her up to fail, then blamed her publicly. And Rebecca before that. There's a pattern." Aisha pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots of old team messages. Brad making contradictory statements. Setting impossible deadlines. Creating confusion, then blaming the women on his team when things went wrong. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you're the first one who's fighting back instead of just quitting. And because I'm tired of watching good people get destroyed." She wasn't the only one. Over the next week, 3 other team members quietly approached me with similar stories. I wasn't imagining things. Brad had a systematic approach to eliminating women from leadership positions. I started staying late every night, pulling company-wide metrics and project timelines. The pattern became clear when viewed from a data perspective. Under Brad's management, female employees had a 73% higher turnover rate than males. Projects led by women were 40% more likely to be reassigned midstream to male colleagues. The numbers were damning, but I needed more. I cross-referenced performance reviews with project outcomes. Women consistently received lower ratings despite delivering superior results. Brad's notes always mentioned communication issues or leadership concerns for female staff, while men with identical performance received praise. Late Thursday night, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. In the shared drive archives, I found performance improvement plans Brad had drafted for 5 different women over the past 3 years. All for the same vague reasons. All leading to eventual termination. I was number 6. The draft document was already in the system, dated for next month. Maya Kim, performance improvement plan, communication deficiencies, team management issues, client relationship concerns. He'd been planning my destruction for months. Today's public humiliation was just the beginning. I encrypted all my findings and backed them up in 3 different locations. Friday morning brought Brad's boldest move yet. I arrived at work to find my Peterson Industries presentation being shared on the company-wide Monday update. But my name had been removed from every slide. The executive summary now read, prepared by Brad Wilson and the marketing strategy team. My 3 months of research, my client analysis, my strategic recommendations, all attributed to him. When I confronted him about it, he actually laughed. Come on, Maya. It's a team effort. We all contribute to these projects. I worked on this for 3 months. You know I developed the entire strategy. Can you prove that? His smile was cruel. Looks like standard team collaboration to me. But I could prove it. I immediately went to my computer and pulled the document properties, showing creation dates and edit histories. Every significant change had my login timestamp. The original document was created on my computer, saved to my personal drive first. I screenshotted everything and added it to my growing evidence folder. Brad had just made his biggest mistake. Monday morning, I got a call from IT security. Maya, we need to discuss some unusual file access patterns on your account. My heart pounded as I walked to their office. Had they discovered my evidence gathering? You've been accessing archived files and pulling historical reports, the IT manager, Tom, explained. Can you explain why you need 3 years of performance data? I forced myself to look confused and slightly embarrassed. Oh, that. Brad asked me to pull some comparative analysis for a presentation he's working on. I probably got carried away with the research. Tom seemed satisfied with the explanation, but warned me about data security protocols. Just make sure you're not storing sensitive information on personal devices. Of course not, I lied smoothly. That afternoon, I downloaded encryption software and secured all my files. If they were monitoring my activity, I needed to be more careful. But I couldn't stop now. I was too close to having everything I needed. I also started using my personal laptop and phone hotspot for sensitive research, keeping my work computer clean. The next week, I decided to test Brad with bait he couldn't resist. During our team meeting, I casually mentioned an idea for a new client retention program. What if we created personalized video messages from our executives for high-value clients? Research shows it increases loyalty by 40%. I deliberately made the idea sound bigger and more impressive than it was, knowing Brad's ego wouldn't let him ignore it. Sure enough, 2 days later, he scheduled a meeting with Mr. Thompson to discuss his innovative client retention strategy. He rushed the presentation together over a single afternoon, not bothering to research implementation costs or timeline requirements. I watched from my office as he practically skipped to the executive conference room, carrying his hastily prepared slides. The meeting lasted 15 minutes. Brad emerged looking confused and slightly panicked. Apparently, Mr. Thompson had asked detailed questions about budget requirements, staff allocation, and pilot program metrics. Brad had no answers. I spent the evening researching what those answers should have been, preparing for the follow-up conversation I knew was coming. Friday's all-hands meeting was where Brad's rushed presentation came back to haunt him. Mr. Thompson asked him to demonstrate the client retention platform he'd proposed. "Well, it's still in development," Brad stammered, clicking through slides that made no sense without proper context. "You proposed a 6-month timeline," Mr. Thompson said calmly. "Surely you have a prototype or at least detailed wireframes?" Brad's face went red. "The team is still working on the technical requirements." "Which team members are assigned to this project?" Long pause. "Maya's team is handling the research phase." Every eye in the room turned to me. I kept my expression neutral. I wasn't aware of any research assignments for this project. Brad shot me a panicked look. "We discussed this last week." "No, we discussed my idea for personalized video messages." "But you said it wasn't feasible given our current resources." The room fell silent. Mr. Thompson's expression was unreadable, but he was definitely taking notes. "Perhaps we should table this discussion until the project scope is clearer," Mr. Thompson said diplomatically. Brad nodded frantically, but I could see the sweat on his forehead. That weekend, an anonymous email hit Mr. Thompson's inbox. I know because Elise had connections throughout the company, including Mr. Thompson's executive assistant. The email contained carefully selected evidence, screenshots showing Brad taking credit for others' work, audio recordings of him contradicting team members in meetings, and project timelines proving his pattern of setting women up for failure. Everything was presented factually, without emotional language or personal attacks. Just data, timestamps, and clear patterns of unethical behavior. The email ended with a simple statement: "These patterns suggest systematic workplace harassment that may expose the company to legal liability." Monday morning, the entire executive team was buzzing with whispered conversations. Mr. Thompson looked grim during his usual morning walkthrough of the departments. Brad seemed oblivious, still strutting around like he owned the place. He had no idea that his world was about to collapse. Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Mr. Thompson's assistant asked me to come to his office immediately. I walked down the hall with shaking hands, convinced I was about to be fired. Maybe they'd traced the anonymous email back to me. Maybe Brad had convinced them I was the problem. Mr. Thompson's office was intimidating under normal circumstances. Today, it felt like a courtroom. "Sit down, Maya," he said, his tone neutral. "I want to have an off-the-record conversation." My mouth went dry. "Of course. I've been hearing some concerning reports about management practices in your department. I'd like you to tell me about your experience working under Brad's supervision." I hesitated. This could be a trap. But Elisa's words echoed in my mind: let Brad fire himself. "What specifically would you like to know?" I asked carefully. "Everything," he said simply. "And Maya?" "This conversation is protected under our whistleblower policy. Nothing you say will be used against you." I took a deep breath and began with the Peterson Industries setup. I explained how Brad had deliberately given me wrong information, then blamed me for the failed presentation. Mr. Thompson listened without interruption as I laid out 2 years of systematic sabotage. I showed him documents on my phone, the evidence I'd been gathering for weeks. "This is the metadata from the presentation Brad claimed as his own," I said, scrolling through screenshots. "You can see it was created on my computer, with my login credentials." I showed him the performance review discrepancies, the turnover statistics, and the pattern of women being eliminated from leadership roles. "Do you have documentation for all of this?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Everything I've shown you is backed up with timestamps, email trails, and witness statements." His expression remained carefully neutral, but I could see him processing the information. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" he asked. "Honestly? I was afraid. Brad has been very clear about what happens to people who challenge him. I needed to be absolutely certain I had enough evidence to protect myself. Mr. Thompson nodded slowly. You did the right thing bringing this to my attention. The next morning, Mr. Thompson announced an internal audit of department management practices. A team of external consultants would be reviewing performance metrics, employee satisfaction scores, and management effectiveness across all divisions. Brad was completely clueless about what had triggered the audit. During our team meeting, he actually joked about it. Probably just corporate checking boxes for compliance, he said with his usual smirk. Nothing to worry about if you're doing your job properly. I bit my tongue and continued playing my role as the struggling employee. I made sure to look appropriately nervous about the audit, asking worried questions about what they might review. Don't stress, Maya, Brad said condescendingly. As long as you're honest about your performance issues, they'll probably just recommend additional training. The irony was almost too much to bear. While he was planning my downfall, the investigators were already building a case against him. Over the next week, team members were called in for private interviews. I watched Brad's confidence slowly start to crack as people emerged from these meetings looking serious and determined. During my formal interview with the audit team, I learned something that changed everything. The company had a comprehensive whistleblower protection policy that I hadn't even known existed. Any employee who reports workplace harassment or unethical behavior is legally protected from retaliation, the lead investigator explained. This protection extends to your job security, performance reviews, and career advancement opportunities. I formally filed a whistleblower complaint, documenting every incident of Brad's behavior. The legal department assured me that my job was now protected while the investigation continued. That afternoon, I requested a copy of my complete personnel file from HR. What I found shocked me. Brad had been documenting performance concerns about me for 8 months, building a case for termination. But now I had legal protection and a paper trail proving his harassment. His own documentation became evidence against him. The investigation team was particularly interested in the pattern of women leaving the department. They'd already contacted Samantha and Rebecca, both of whom were willing to testify about their experiences. Eased her coding approach, she calmly said, I disagree with that assessment, and I'd like HR to review this conversation. Brad looked stunned. Aisha had never challenged him before. Alex followed suit the next day, questioning one of Brad's decisions in front of the entire team. Then Jessica started documenting every interaction in writing, CCNG HR on follow-up emails. The team I thought had abandoned me was actually preparing to stand up. They'd just been waiting for someone else to go first. HR was flooded with formal complaints. Patterns that had been invisible when people suffered in silence became obvious when multiple voices spoke together. Brad tried to dismiss it as coordinated insubordination, but his authority was crumbling in real time. Friday afternoon, Brad finally realized something was seriously wrong. He stormed into my office, closing the door behind him with enough force to rattle the frame. You think you're better than me, he snarled, leaning over my desk. You think you can destroy my career? I casually reached for my phone and hit record before looking up at him. I'm not sure what you mean, Brad. I'm just trying to do my job. Don't play innocent with me. I know you're behind this audit. You've been poisoning people against me. I've been documenting my work experiences, which is my right as an employee. His face turned purple. Your work experiences? You mean your failures? Your complete inability to handle basic management responsibilities? Is that really how you see the situation? I asked calmly, making sure my phone was capturing everything. I made you, he hissed. I gave you opportunities you never deserved. And this is how you repay me? By stabbing me in the back? I think you should step out of my office now, I said firmly. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. I will destroy you. That evening, I uploaded the recording to a secure server and sent a copy to the audit team. But I also did something that felt perfectly justified. I anonymously shared it on the company's internal collaboration platform. The audio file spread through the office like wildfire. Brad's threats, his admission of making my career, his obvious intimidation tactics, all captured in crystal clear quality. By Monday morning, everyone had heard it. The elevator conversation stopped when Brad appeared. People literally stepped aside to avoid him in hallways. The executive team called an emergency meeting. I wasn't invited, but the entire floor could hear raised voices coming from the conference room. Brad emerged 2 hours later, looking like he'd seen a ghost. He went straight to his office and closed the door. The audit team expanded their investigation to include potential criminal intimidation charges. The recording had crossed a line from workplace harassment into actual threats. I'd given Brad exactly what Elise predicted, enough rope to hang himself. Friday afternoon, Mr. Thompson personally escorted Brad to the elevator. The entire office watched in stunned silence as security carried out boxes containing his personal belongings. Brad's eyes found mine across the office space. The hatred in his glare was intense, but I didn't flinch. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't afraid of him. He mouthed something I couldn't quite catch, but it didn't matter. His power over me was finished. After the elevator doors closed, the office remained eerily quiet for several minutes. Then, gradually, normal conversations resumed. But everything felt different. The investigation had revealed that Brad's behavior had cost the company an estimated $3.2 million in lost productivity, legal settlements with former employees, and client relationships damaged by his management style. His termination was immediate and final, with no severance package due to the documented harassment and intimidation. That afternoon, I cleaned out my evidence files and encrypted them for permanent storage. The nightmare was over. Monday morning brought an unexpected call to Mr. Thompson's office. I assumed it was for final statements about the investigation. Instead, he gestured for me to sit across from his desk and smiled, the first genuine smile I'd ever seen from him. "Maya, I want to offer you Brad's position. Senior Director of Marketing Strategy, effective immediately." I sat there speechless, certain I'd misheard. "The audit revealed that your strategic thinking and client relationship skills are exceptional. The Peterson presentation that Brad sabotaged? Our consultants reviewed your original version. It was brilliant. Sir, I don't know what to say. The team respects you. Your documentation during this investigation showed remarkable professionalism under pressure. And frankly, you've earned the opportunity to lead without interference." The salary increase was substantial. The office came with windows. But most importantly, I'd have the authority to implement real changes. "I accept," I said, my voice barely steady. "Excellent. We'll announce it this afternoon. Your first challenge is rebuilding team morale and client confidence." I walked out of his office feeling like I was floating. My first team meeting as senior director was surreal. The same conference room where Brad had humiliated me now hosted my introduction as department head. "I want to start by acknowledging what we've all been through," I said, looking around the table at faces that were cautiously optimistic. "This team is incredibly talented, and I'm honored to lead you." I outlined my management philosophy: transparent communication, shared credit for successes, and support during challenges. Going forward, every project will have clear documentation showing individual contributions. No one's work will ever be invisible again. Aisha raised her hand. "What about the Peterson Industries account? Are they still interested?" "Actually, yes. I spoke with them Friday. They want to reschedule our presentation using my original strategic approach." The energy in the room shifted completely. For the first time in months, people looked excited about work. We spent the rest of the meeting planning our recovery strategy and setting new team standards. 3 weeks into my new role, my personal email chimed with a message from an address I didn't recognize. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. Maya, I want you to know that I made you everything you are. Don't forget that your success came from my training and guidance. You owe me everything. Brad. I stared at the message for a full minute, feeling old anxieties try to resurface. Then I typed my response. Brad, I want you to know that you taught me exactly what kind of leader I never want to be. Thank you for that lesson. I've learned to recognize manipulation, document everything, and trust my instincts. You're right, I do owe you something. I owe you my strength. I hit send, then immediately blocked his email address. His message had been intended to intimidate me, to make me doubt my abilities. Instead, it reminded me how far I'd come. 6 months later, I stood in what used to be Brad's office, looking out at my thriving team. The Peterson Industries account had turned into a 3-year contract worth $4.8 million. Employee satisfaction scores in our department were the highest in company history. Aisha had been promoted to senior developer. Alex was leading his own project team. Jessica had received 2 client commendations for her innovative solutions. We'd hired 3 new team members, including 2 women who brought fresh perspectives and energy to our work. The performance improvement plan Brad had drafted for me was framed on my wall. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that other people's opinions don't define your worth. My phone buzzed with a text from Elise, saw the company newsletter feature about your team's success. I'm so proud of you. I smiled, remembering her advice about letting Brad fire himself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's simply refusing to let someone else's cruelty define your future. Walking past Brad's old office every day no longer triggered painful memories. Instead, it reminded me that integrity, documentation, and quiet determination can overcome even the most systematic bullying. I'd learned that sometimes the person trying to destroy you is actually building your strength.